morning, everybody. How are you? We've got some news from the Rock History Music News Desk, or should I really say, because they gave it to me first, and credit where credit is due, Ultimate Classic Rock, one of my favorite websites. They were one of the first to report that David Lee Roth has canceled his entire farewell tour residency in Vegas. Now, the story kind of tells us, if you read between the lines, that, he's worried and he's concerned about some health issues. And I've heard that through the grapevine anyway. At his age, that's going to happen. But hold on a second. Just let me look this up here. Give me 3 seconds. We're doing this. No, it doesn't say. Anyway, here's the story. Officially, about maybe 3 weeks ago, I contacted his management and asked if he was doing any interviews. And they just said, thanks for inquiring. At this time, David's not doing any interviews whatsoever. So I'm not, that's a common response when you're trying to get an interview from someone. It's not uncommon at all. So representative for David Lee Roth in the venue said the Las Vegas Review-Journal, the House of Blues concert has been canceled. And all he had to say is a funny thing happened on the way to Vegas. That's the only thing he has publicly said. Sorry if the lights are one of my, hi Dwayne, how you doing, man? One of my lights is starting to go a little wacky here. So hold on, let me get in it. I'm trying to get there's some people are sending me information, and I if you can't verify it, you can't verify it. So we're not going to, obviously, like I said, has, hold on, there we go. We're putting it up. So let's see what they wrote. Due to unforeseen circumstances related to COVID and out of the abundance of caution for those working and attending the shows, that was for the New Year's Eve show and the New Year's Day show. Here and listening. Hi, Edward. So that's what they said, but the entire thing's been canceled. And in about 20, 30 minutes, we're going to go down and do another live broadcast. That's what they're saying, that he's not doing well. And I got responses this morning from people saying, well, he's an exercise fanatic. How you doing? To the fact that his doctors were saying, and he expected to be the first. He said, it's not that I could have been the first one dead. Eddie Van Halen, of course, we lost not that long ago. But here's what he originally announced in late September his Vegas residency and his big swan song. This is from Multiple Classic Rock. I'm throwing in my shoes. I'm retiring. And he said, he alluded to the fact that Eddie Van Halen, passing away and his own health. And his doctors would tell him things, and I'm paraphrasing, saying things to him like, you could have been, every time you go on stage, it could be your last show. I am encouraged and compelled to really come to grips on how short time is, and my time is probably even shorter. And he says, he alluded to, he thought he'd be the first to die in that band. And my doctors, my handlers, compelled me to really address that every time I go on stage, I endanger that further. And there you go. When you're in that kind of situation, you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, is it worth it? Is it worth it to even endanger your life? I used to ask a lot of performers, do you consider the fact that you go out there? And I've told this story many times because my father, when he turned 65, basically just said, okay, that's enough. I'm done. He'd sit in his rocker and not do a lot. But I started asking rockers, do you look at this as exercise? Because I used to tell my dad, when you were working and you were doing the lawn and doing things, that you were getting exercise, right? You realize that. And he'd go, oh, I've had enough of that. I've done enough of that kind of stuff. So I asked rockers, when you go on stage, you consider that? And half of them will say, well, that's hard. It's hard work. I don't know if that's helping me or killing me. So let's see some of the comments from the vegan rock star. Hi, I had tickets to 2 shows. Be careful, please, to not start rumors. We're not starting rumors. But he's insinuated, his doctor even told him that every time you go on stage could be your last show because of his age, of course. But Oh, now there's messages coming on. Welcome to the live chat. Remember, guard your privacy, abide by the community guidelines. I've never seen that. Maybe it comes up every time. I haven't seen it. Kevin Walsh, thank you for all the episodes, John. Very enjoyable to listen over the years. Thank you. I appreciate your support. Injured table tennis player. How does he make his money? Well, he'll get residuals from sales. That light is, can you see it? I can see it on screen. So let me go in here. Just give me 3 seconds, guys. See if there's any new information on this. We kind of canvassed everything before we came on. And there's not a lot of information. I mean, these guys, I mean, he's 67 years old. I'm going to be 62 in a few weeks, right? But there's a difference between my lifestyle and his lifestyle. And you never know what's in your DNA. You never know. And a lot of these rock stars do not go around telling people they're sick. Do you remember we heard from Freddie Mercury a day before he died that he had AIDS? They like to keep their, look at all the stars that we've lost in the last little while. Sometimes Neil Peart's probably the best example. Like all of a sudden we were so incredibly shocked that he was dead because they kept it under the lid. They just didn't say anything. And no one in the camp let it go out. When I talked to the guys in Triumph, they said, well, we knew he was dying. Of course we knew. But he's a class guy, and we wouldn't have done it no matter who it was, but especially for him because he was very private, right? And again, I'm not saying but he's 67, and how which gets me to a point we're going to make it in another video today. We're going to start doing a few more live things because I kind of like being on the fly and just talking to you guys. I enjoy it. A lot of these rock stars are running out of time. They're just running out of time. We've got Mick Jagger and Keith Richards are 78 years old. Ronnie Wood's a little younger. He's 74. Charlie Watts was 80 when he died. We've got Elton John, who's 75 in March. Billy Joel's 72. Bob Dylan's 80. Ringo Starr's 82 in July. And Dylan's birthday, Bob Dylan, his birthday's coming up in May. Paul McCartney is going to be 80 in June. Tony Bennett's 95. He's had to retire. We met Tony Bennett, Shannon and I, backstage. He was very humble. So, hi from, Suffolk in UK. Yeah. Hello. Marcus says, hi, John, Happy New Year. Diamond Dave, one of the greatest entertainers ever. Yeah. I had a friend in LA who was interviewing him. I almost Freudianly said who was interviewed by David Lee Roth because David took over the interview on stage. Kind of like a Robin Williams thing, but Robin does it but Dave was he thought he was just so manic on the air with him that he took over the interview. He says, maybe you should just interview me. And Believing Rebels coming in late. David Lee Roth, okay. I'm turning 66 in 10 days. Well, Believing Rebel, we all know how it feels to be this. Anyone who watches and listens to this channel or all the other channels, we're all around the same age. 5 years difference can make a big difference in high school. If you're dating someone, that's not going to work. As they say, that dog won't hunt. It's not going to work. At this age, it doesn't change. 5 years difference at this age could be a big difference because you can age an awful lot in 5 years, right? It's weird now. We're all of the same ilk. We all know people who have died. We all know people who have gotten incredibly sick. Some of us could have been there. I haven't been. I've been lucky. Knock on wood. Injured table tennis player says, I'm 63. A doctor just had a fall, awaiting my insurance to approve the MRI. And we'll have surgery next week. I can totally relate. Wow. Sorry about that, man. Ian Garrett, sorry, I realize COVID comments can get a broadcast deplatformed. So, okay. Injured table tennis player. 62, I thought you were in your early 50s. Oh, that's nice. Well, I have a much younger wife, so she's almost 11 years younger than me. She keeps me young. Good lighting. That's what it is. Good lighting. Even though I just realized my lighting's starting to. Ian Garrett says, ego and bravado helps as a lead singer. Yeah. You have to. You just brought up a really important point. I mean, you kind of, in that band, no one else could have done that at that time, even though I like Sammy Hagar a lot. I've said this many times. I'm a big Sammy Hagar fan. And I like the stuff that he did with Van Halen. I don't know why. At that point, I was just open to it. And it was almost sacrilegious to replace him, right? But people leave in bands. Road Trip Eddie, don't forget Ozzy. He's great, old too. Well, there's two schools of thought with Ozzy, right? Because Ozzy's been Ozzy for so many years now. People just say he can be that way. He can talk that way. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna write this down so I don't forget. 67, David Lee Roth. Again, just to go to the Stones. We lost Charlie Watts at 80. Mick Jagger, 78. Keith Richards is 78. Keith Richards does not look 78. And I think everyone knows what I mean by that. Ronnie Wood's 74. Elton John's going to be 75 in March. Billy Joel is 72. Willie Nelson's way up there. He's going to be 89 in April. Dionne Warwick is she just turned 81 in December. Tony Bennett's 95, but he's had to, Tony's dealing with his own things, right? So, hold on. Let's see. How old is Ozzy? I just have to look it up. He's 73, but Ozzy's an old 73. I'm going to write that one down. And here's the thing. So many people ask me, would I go see Genesis in the condition that Phil is in? And I can't afford those prices. A lot of people think that I'm rich doing this YouTube channel. I certainly am not. We live off the YouTube channel, that and my radio job. My radio job's a part-time thing. It's regular every night thing, but, So people ask me that all the time. I don't know if I'd see Genesis that way. I've only seen them twice. The self-titled Genesis album in the 80s and the Duke tour. And Duke's one of my favorite albums. So let's get back to the comments. This is just a short one because I'm running out of power on my phone. Yes, Mr. Big YouTube does his video sometimes on his phone. Injured table tennis player wants Zeb to do one more tour. I think it's not going to happen, but if they did, it'd be one more show. But Rick Emmett brought up a point when I was talking to him about the Triumph stuff. Rick Emmett says, whether it's one show or 10 shows, you still have to get in that condition for that first show, whether that's just 1 or 10. Either way, you still have to be at that spot for that first show. So he said, finishing 10 shows is difficult, but you still have to get to that. So I don't think they'll ever do that. I don't think Robert Plant wants to sing at that level anymore, or can. He doesn't want to prance. He said it before. He doesn't want to prance around the stage like he's 20 years old anymore. So, what do you do to stay fit? Personal trainer, injured table tennis player. No, I have a wife who watches me. Edward says, I think Keith Richards is the litmus test of rock and roll longevity. Well said, my friend. Trenton Paul, some of these people have a rough life. It's very true. Being a middle child in my family, I started realizing why I needed to be a DJ. I wasn't a good enough drummer to make a living off it, but I needed to have some kind of special life because my self-esteem was so low and I just needed something that was a lie. Being a radio announcer somehow is this quasi kind of flashy job, but really you're in a room by yourself most of the time. You have to make special engagements and introduce bands, interview bands, but that I found easy after a while. So being a middle child, I did that. A lot of rock stars, when I talk to them, they always talk about not necessarily being middle children, but they talk about having low self-esteem. A lot of them do. Or having been so disappointed when they became famous and they went, I'm not any happier because I'm famous. And that sends them down a bad road as well. But we've all got stuff, right? Styx released a new album last year and they are still touring. Yep. Keith Richard drank from some hose that gave FDR polio. Okay, that's good. That's enough of that. Dave must be bummed. He rehearsed every day for a month before the show #1. Yeah. Zepp could do another one with Ann Wilson. That would be really cool. I love Ann Wilson. Just love that woman. Ruben Kincaid. Hey, Ruben, how you doing, man? His announcement was cryptic. It was a little cryptic. Yes, well said. Good point. So is it just COVID? It's not just COVID. Even though I can't go to a concert. I can't, we're wearing the M95s now, which, do this to your ears. But one thing about those masks, I found that, hey, nothing's on your mouth. It's kind of cool. Terry Kemp says it's a shame. Yeah, he can't really sing that well anymore. Terry, good point. Of course, the most obvious thing. He's just kind of lost that, A lot of singers, and we've all seen this. You guys are rock and roll experts too. You know your music. There's a thinning of the voice after a while, and you can't reach those levels. And sometimes some singers, when they sing, they sound like they're heavy smokers, even if they're not, because age will do that. It'll thin out your voice. There's a lot of things that can happen. Ruben Kincaid says cancer or something else. Well, physically, you've got to be careful. If he's, again, someone made a really good point. We don't want to start rumors, but if there's anything wrong with him, you shouldn't be on stage, because that's like a workout of workouts being out there, especially the way that he used to do it. And he's trying to keep up with that, and he can't. No, none of us can. So let's be fair about that. I can't do the things I could do when I was 25 years old. Not even close. So there you go. Ian Garrett says, the golden age of rock and roll, 1954 to 2000-ish. Little Richard, Foo Fighters, there's no new iconic bands anywhere. Video killed the radio star. Streaming killed the rock star and roll. Ian, you're very articulate. You're the man. Appreciate that. K. Jeld Larson, even though it's hard to admit, I would have respect for those artists who says it's dear fans, my voice is done, instead of just keeping singing. Another very, very good point. If you were a runner and there was something wrong with your leg where you couldn't keep that, if you went out there and ran, everyone can see that. If you go on stage, everyone can hear that. Everyone can hear that a lot of these singers can't do what they... But again, every time I interview someone, they go, I just want to be on stage. Am I wrong to want to be on stage? I just want to be on stage. And then the other half, every time I talk to Steve Hackett, and I've talked to him more than any other artist in 38 years in radio, going on 39 now, he always has that joie de vivre, that fervor of wanting to be on stage, and he's very good at it. He was just voted top prog guitarist. Did you see that before Christmas? And I think I should be talking to him maybe this month. I think our new interview's coming up, that and Ian Anderson, and hopefully Randy Bachman's coming up. So they love being on stage. That's what they do. Some of them do it for the money. Remember what Steve Porcaro told us maybe 2 years ago? Steve Porcaro of Toto said, artists tour because they don't want to lose their stuff. Someone asked a while ago, how's he make his money? Well, there's residuals still coming in, not as much, thanks to Spotify. They don't get a lot of money, right? Luke of Toto, speaking of Toto, has said many times how ridiculous it is, how little money they get from their recordings on Spotify, and they have to tour if they want to keep their stuff. That was Steve P, we call him. Okay. Ruben Kincaid, he's too tough of a guy to share his diagnosis if he has one. We don't know. Walt Moss Jr. I'm going to see Carlos Santana in the Midwest in April. Everything has to line up. Science, a desire to shows. Yeah, well said. Ruben Kincaid, there is some great new bands out there. You're right. What do we got? Ruben Kincaid. Dinosaur Pileup? That's a band? I want to write that down. Is that really a band? We're going to do a thing on aging rock stars. So you come and join us a little while. We're going to go through. Steven Tyler still has his chops. Steven Tyler, there you go. Yes and no. I saw Christine McVie with Fleetwood Mac, for instance, on the ABC, like the Today Show or one of those shows, and she was struggling. But then I saw another clip of her, and she sounded okay, at least better. So Steven Tyler, I saw a clip of him. He didn't sound too good, but you can have a bad day, and those guys at that age have more bad days than good days sometimes. As does John Anderson. This is Reuben Kincaid of Yes. But even voices like James Taylor have lost quality. It's that depth, right? Or they just go deep, or they lose their high end. Elton John, because he's had throat surgery. The vegan rock star 2011 says some have to go on stage for the money, but others need to perform. It's a drug. Very well said. Yes. Hector Fletcher Hernandez, Iron Maiden, 60 plus, all of them. They still kick ass. Yeah. Reuben Kincaid, that's great. Check out the round. And this thing keeps moving. That's why I can't read it. Check out Round the Bend, thrash metal cassette. Okay, just a few more comments. We're going to have to wrap things up. Geddy Lee was able to modify his voice. Yes, some people do that. Really, Gregory, some people, Elton John certainly did it more. It's more noticeably than anyone else I've ever seen, where Elton has restyled all the songs. Of course, they're sung in a different key sometimes. Peter Cetera, and remember the rumor, Peter Cetera going on stage, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He didn't with Chicago, or if people were thinking, how is Steve Perry going to sing the songs if he went on with Journey for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I agree, Gregory. I think John Anderson still sounds really good. Reuben Kincaid, you bet performing is a drug. There's nothing like that adrenaline. I mean, I get the adrenaline when I'm introducing a band. I think the biggest crowd I had was 20,000, and I was introducing a band, and I remember going, this is like, oh my God. It was crazy. Love all your stuff. Thanks, Greg. Have a merry 2022. I am sure Roth is disappointed having to cancel shows. He's got to be, but there's that thing. We don't know what's going on with him, but whether it's a personal thing, and we don't want to start rumors, and that's true. Bruce Dickinson survived cancer, still on stage. Yeah, that's right. With all the aging rock stars, it'd be interesting in a holographic concert tour. Yeah, they're all the rage now. Paul Carrick is 70. Paul Carrick sounds great. And we had Paul as a guest. I'm going to write that down. We're going to come on in about an hour and a half. We're going to talk about more stuff. Everyone's telling us we should do more live feeds, and this way you directly live can talk about the stuff that you want. We're also working on maybe getting a few of you, and some of you are incredibly articulate and bang on for the points, to be guests with us when we do live feeds, if we can all do it together. I will be back. Thanks. We got 67 people watching. We'll be back in a couple hours. We're going to talk about aging rock stars, and some of these artists are running out of time. That's going to be the title of the video. Take good care of yourself. David Lee Roth cancels Vegas residency, insinuating, almost cryptic as someone said, that it's not going to happen. So take care of yourself, okay? I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music.